logo and thought, why does this look so perfect, while others just don't hit the mark? I used to feel the same way when I was designing logos back in 2016. I stumbled upon something that completely changed the way how I work: grids. So at first, grids seemed too technical for something creative like logo design, but I quickly realized they were the missing piece I needed. So before using grids, my logos often felt off. I spent hours shifting shapes around, but they never felt balanced. It was so frustrating putting all that time into a design only for it to feel unfinished or unpolished. So then I started using grids and everything clicked. They helped me to bring structure to my ideas and made balancing my designs so much easier. Since then, grids have been my go-to tool for creating logos that feel timeless and professional. My clients noticed the difference, and designing became so much more enjoyable. In this video, I will show you how grids can transform your logo designs too. By the end, you will have the tools to make logos that look as perfect as they feel. My name is Jan Ditters from Typeful, and on this channel I help logo and brand identity designers to make their design life easier by sharing my experiences and knowledge. In this video, you will learn how to use grids to design logos that are perfectly balanced, professional and just look right, with practical tips and examples you can apply in your own work right away. Why grids make a difference in logos. So let's start why grids are so important in logo design. Have you ever noticed how some logos just feel perfect? They are balanced, clean and just work everywhere. That's not a coincidence. Most of the most iconic logos are built with grids. Timeless logos use grids. Think of brands like Apple, Target and Twitter. What do they have in common? Their logos are built using grids. And often they are created with geometric shapes. These shapes can create a sense of balance and precision, making the logo feel structured yet natural. This is why so many logos have stayed the same over years, because they work. Grids help you feel in control. I started using grids back in 2016 during my lettermark exploration challenge. I designed all these lettermarks using a squared grid, and honestly, that changed everything. Before that, I would tweak and adjust endlessly, hoping my designs would feel right. With a grid, I finally had a structure that made the process easier and more intentional. Grids make logos work everywhere. One of the biggest benefits of designing a logo in a grid is that it ensures it works in every format, like on social media profile pictures or app icons or on big headers. By working within a squared format, you can create a design that scales beautifully and remains versatile. I have to mention, if the logo is too horizontal or too vertical, it might not fit in all applications. How do grids work in logo design? Now let's look at different types of grids and how they help in logo design. Types of grids. So we have the circular grid. These grids are often inspired by the golden ratio, a mathematical proportion found in nature, art and design. The golden ratio helps to create naturally balanced and aesthetically pleasing compositions. You can see this in logos like Apple and Twitter, where circular grids define the structure and spacing. Then we have squared grids. These are the most versatile and commonly used grids. Brands like Chase Bank, Target, Microsoft and CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, all use squared grids to create well-structured, proportionally balanced logos that work across different formats. Isometric grids. Like squared and circular grids, isometric grids allow for a 3D-like effect by using equal angles. They create a sense of depth and perspective, making them perfect for tech brands and futuristic designs. A great example is Dropbox's original logo, which was built using an isometric grid to represent organized storage in a three-dimensional way. Another famous example of isometric design is the Penrose triangle, an impossible shape that tricks the eye into seeing depth where there is none. So now I wanted to share my work with grids. I want to show you how I use grids in my own work. Here are 5 logos where grids played a major role. So first we have the Sinclair logo, which represents 2 hands holding a rectangle, and this rectangle represents a digital file. It's a structured yet modern brand mark where the grid kept everything aligned. Then we have the Crandom logo. This one uses a squared grid to create balanced and rounded proportions. The Typeful brand mark for my own brand identity. It's a design where the grid helped refine the spacing and the weight of the letters, the T and the F. Then we have the Mila logotype. The grid helped balancing the spacing between each letter and the thickness of the letter, making it feel intentional. And then we have the COS brand mark, a modern geometric logo where the grid ensured perfect proportions and spacing. And also based on the squared grid, I could create this optical illusion in the brand mark. Designing a logo with a grid. Now let's go step by step as I redesign the Your logo type using a squared grid in Illustrator. First, I start with sketches. Before jumping into Illustrator, I always start with sketches. This is the part where I let the ideas flow freely. Just getting thoughts down on paper without worrying about precision. I do this often on a blank page, sketching different concepts without a grid at first. Once I have a few solid ideas, I move into my small sketchbook, where I refine the designs on a squared grid. This is where I start aligning elements more carefully before heading into Illustrator. Building the grid in Illustrator. Now it's time to bring the design into Illustrator. What I always do is I always paste the sketch into the artboard of Illustrator. Then I create a squared grid. And I know there are different ways to do this. Here is how I always set up mine. First, I draw a rectangle on the sketch. And I make sure the stroke line is activated. And I have a black stroke color for now. Then I go to Object, Part, and Split into Grid. And I want to make sure, I'm going to check the preview. So I want to make sure the rows and the columns are equal to each other, 6 by 6. And this also fits the grid of the sketch. So then press on OK. And then I want to make sure the grid covers the sketch of the design. I'm going to delete these two rows. So I want to select the grid, press on Command X, create a new layer on top of the sketch and press on Shift Option Command V. Then I want to create another layer, which will be the layer where I'm going to create the logo design in. So I'm going to call this design. So I'm going to call this layer grid. I'm going to call this layer sketch to keep everything organized. I'm going to set the opacity to 50 of the sketch, and then I'm going to lock the grid and the sketch layer. Placing shapes on the grid. Now that the grid is ready, I start building the logo. And I do this with the pen tool, and I'm going to trace the sketch with the pen tool. And I make sure I have the design layer selected. I'm going to give it a stroke color. I give the stroke a bigger point size so I can see what I'm doing better. So the grid helps me align everything and keeps the proportions just right. Okay, that looks good. 4. Refining the design. So once the basic structure is in place, it's time to refine the details. In this case, it is rounding the edges of the design. going to select the whole design, press on Shift M, and with holding Option, I'm going to delete this square inside of the O. So it won't be filled with black if I'm going to change the color from stroke to fill color. So this small change of rounding the corners adds character to the design. 5. Finishing touches. Once the structure and details are complete, I test it at different sizes to ensure it holds up well in various applications. And if needed, I create a smaller brand mark for on small surfaces, how I did in this case for Yor. Using grids in logo design isn't about limiting creativity. It's about creating a strong foundation for a well-balanced and professional result. That being said, you don't want to force a logo into a grid if it doesn't make sense for the design. Organic, hand-drawn or highly expressive logos can lose their natural feel if you try to make them fit into a strict grid. The key is knowing when a grid will enhance your design and when to let it be more freedom. If you want to learn more like logo design like this, let me know in the comments. And if you found value in this video, please consider subscribing. Peace!